Mar-a-Lago has a big problem. For years, it has been assessed for tax purposes, property tax purposes in particular, as a private club. And it has been assessed as a private club, not just because that's how it's been used, but because Trump has signed a series of agreements, first with the town of Palm Beach and then with the National Trust for Historic Preservation, that limits how he can use that property. In particular, he gave what's called the conservation easement, which is a donation of all future development rights to the National Trust, saying that it would never be developed or used as anything but a club. The problem is that in his statements of financial condition, which he has used to gain loans, obtain insurance policies, the property has been valued as if it were a private residence that could be sold to a single person or family for their use solely as a private residence and not as a club. And when Eric Trump was asked about that discrepancy last week, he got tripped up and basically said one moment after the other, oh, it is a personal residence. No, it is a private club. So asking President Trump tomorrow, who believes that property is worth $1.5 billion as a private residence, how he accounts for that differential will be very telling, and I'm looking forward to that moment.
Any one specific piece brought up during the Sun's testimonies that stuck out to you?
I think one of the things that stuck out to me across both of the Sun's testimonies was how clearly angry they both were that the Attorney General would take any issue with their roles in certifying their father's financial statements to various banks. So after Donald Trump became president, both Eric and Donald Trump Jr. at various times signed certifications to Deutsche Bank, which had multiple loans out to Donald Trump. In those certifications, they said, we are forwarding to you the statements of financial condition for our father and certifying to you that they fairly present his financial condition in all material respects. The problem is that those underlying statements of financial condition had all sorts of valuation problems. The Mar-a-Lago example that I just gave you is just one of them. And in both cases, they maintained they were entitled to rely on accountants and lawyers in signing those certifications and didn't have to do any independent due diligence or work to assure themselves that the information therein was accurate. The problem is that the nature of their relationship with the accounting firm that did this work was such that at all times the Trump organization had to promise the accountant that that underlying information was accurate. It wasn't the accounting firm's job to go behind it and verify the accuracy of that information.
Trump's going to be in front of an attorney general he has lashed out against relentlessly. The judge, the law clerk, he keeps calling bias. A short time ago, A.G. James tweeted, quote, Trump can try to hide his wrongdoings behind taunts and threats, but we will not be bullied out of uncovering the truth. Lisa, you saw just how contentious the courtroom was last week with Trump's sons. I wonder what it is you were expecting when you have Trump himself there.
Well, you know, Trump has gone into the courthouse hallway on every available break before and after lunch and before and after court, and given the kind of statements in the hallway that I don't expect he would get away with making inside the courtroom. So one of the things I'm really looking forward to tomorrow, I'm not sure looking forward is the right word, sort of looking to see tomorrow, is how deviant his actual on the stand testimony is from those moments when he is separate and apart from the judge and can say whatever he feels like saying within the bounds of this gag order. There is a high likelihood in my mind that Trump or his lawyers will somehow run afoul of the existing gag order and or persuade the judge that additional remedial measures are needed. I'm hopeful that that's not the case because, like Judge Arthur Engoron, I share his view that what Trump is doing is very dangerous to particular people's safety and security.